Hey, folks, you're listening to the Wrecking Crew Comedy Podcast. My name's Vito D'Amico, and today we got an awesome guest. I've been watching this guy, not forever, but he's one of my favorite people to watch on YouTube, and he's been crucified lately, which pisses me off. But he's one of the most poetic. I always look forward for his videos, and he takes his time doing these videos, and they're like pieces of art, okay? And they really are. Folks, we're talking to Mykeru Media, everybody. Mykeru Media, say hi.
Hi. Actually, it's just Mykeru because the media came from the fact that my original Mykeru channel was shut down by YouTube.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to discuss upon various things. What happened there?
Oh, I mean, the first time around?
Yeah, I checked I would check, and then what happened was all the videos were down, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And so, yeah, just explain what happened.
Well, the first time around, I think it was about 2007 when I lost the original Mykeru channel because I was having a running battle with YouTube, and at the time they were more or less a nascent service, and they were weirdly applying their terms of service to things that I didn't think were appropriate. And so I had a couple of strikes for inappropriate content. And then I finally did this video that I actually named Inappropriate Content. And it was filled with like slow motion shots of people getting punched in the jaw and shaking jello and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
And they canned me for it. There was nothing that was actually inappropriate. It was just sort of mocking the idea of, dogs with their tongues lolling out in slow motion.
Right.
And they canned me for it. And it's when I realized that YouTube, it's not actually like they have a human being who's making these kind of judgments. And certainly the algorithms that they use to determine perhaps content and more specifically copyright and use of music is just brute force. Right. And if you're very big on YouTube or you're very lucky, you might have the intervention of a human being, but until that point, it's just this sort of stupid mechanistic process. And this time around, I got two copyright strikes. One from the Cristiano's group, Cristiano's Brothers, and they're makers of evangelical films. And YouTube recently let this one go. Because I mirrored a guy's video where he was doing a review of their film. I think it was called a Question of Faith, a Matter of Faith, something like that. And I mean, this is how little invested I was in it. And it's a review, and taking someone's work and excerpting it for the purposes of comment or criticism or education. A review is straight fair use.
Right.
And the fact that it got that far, and they've been doing this to a lot of people, also shows how broken YouTube's system is. And the second strike was from Karen Stollznow, who we'll probably get into later. And but as far as the minor strikes, the ones that don't really count towards taking down your channel, but will cause your videos to be able to be monetized, that is, other people will be able to make money off your videos, come from things like I did one video that I had a little snippet of a BBC program, just to prove a point, one of their reports.
Right.
And I get a copyright notice, but it wasn't from the BBC. There was music in the background of that clip that someone claimed copyright on.
Oh fuck!
It's to that point.
That is just that to me. Yeah, that just it just makes you want to grab a gun. I mean, I don't get. Do people have nothing better to do?
Well, there's a couple of things going on with that. Sometimes people have nothing better to do. I guess they don't. But these companies are copyright squatters. What they're doing is they're making, instead of producing their own content, they're parasiting off other people's content by claiming copyright on either the entire work or whatever that might be contained in it. For instance, there's a guy who does this copyright-free music Kevin MacLeod, and he has a site in Compotech,
Right.
and he does his own original music, own original compositions, performs them, and he gets copyright claims.
Yeah, I don't like. What do they want people to do? Just who's that famous guy who a lot of guys do? Is it Justicator? All he does is just show his face, like no music, no nothing. And I get,
yeah, Justicar.
Yeah, Justicar. I get it. He has to.
His Twitter handle is Integral Math.
Ugh. But it's like, what do you like? What I love about your work though, it's very poetic. It's very you feel like there's some justice out there. I feel like you're looking out for the little guy. You know.
I have an overdeveloped sense of justice and conscience, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yes, and that can be a terrible thing, but that is a wonderful thing. To the rest of the world, that can be terrible for you because you're the one feeling the brunt. You know.
I've been feeling the brunt for years. And first of all, I mean, the form that my videos take is based on the fact that I started doing this anonymously, and I'd been doxxed in 2005. And there's just people out there. Now, if you really want to dig, you're going to find out my name, and you can find out anything else. So what it became was typically it was someone I don't like, Rebecca Watson, who's this
Yes.
that runs Skepchick International, but she doesn't actually do any skepticism. She kind of plays skeptic girl on the internet. She did a Patreon video where she was charging, I don't know how many hundreds of dollars she got for this video. It was a 3-minute video of her changing the signal toggle switch in her car. And that's what her videos consist of, her sitting there and obviously just talking, either semi-intoxicated but totally unprepared.
Right.
And I just got tired of, well, not that I got tired, I just didn't want to take that form on YouTube of being another talking head. And in fact, there are YouTubers who only used an avatar.
Right.
And then they started doing things, there's a guy that does these fitness videos, exercises in futility, and his handle is Elge Intensity. You only heard his voice, and you could concentrate on what he was doing. Then he started doing this picture-in-a-picture with him and a smaller picture of the thing that he's actually talking about. So your eye is constantly switching back before. It's distracting.
Right.
And so I take this form by using a mostly static avatar, though sometimes a little lemur-eyed cow skull guy blinks or does something like that.
Yeah,
or maybe
I love
his head
that.
moves a little bit. But that's so that I can, one, concentrate on the writing and the elocution when I'm reading what is scripted. I, more often than not, write something out and then rework it.
Yes, it's very poetic. I mean, it seems like I know you have a degree in philosophy, but
analytic philosophy, yeah.
But it's very, and I don't read poems or anything like that, but just listening to you, it's just a wonderful. I think the other day you said something wonderful, like people like to. I'm going to completely butcher it.
All right.
But you said something really nice, like, people like to open up to me. The guy explained that, the only person after coming back from the war is he can only talk to his dog. And it was just so nice. And then you said you took it you put another layer to it, saying, I used to have a dog, but it died. Yeah. It was just very beautiful.
That's a tearjerker. Actually, that story, I didn't have to do much with it. And I still see this guy occasionally. We used to be in the gym together, and for some reason he opened up to me. I guess, like I said, he thought I was someone that he could talk to, and he was right. And actually, when someone does that, because we live in a society where everyone's got their face on, and I think the best thing to do is have a small circle of good friends than a shitload of Facebook friends, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's
but,
true.
You need someone to talk to, and you just needed someone to talk to. And when someone opens up like that to share something that maybe they hadn't told anyone else, that's like a gift. In fact, that happened to my Uncle Victor. recently died at the age of 95. He's actually my great uncle, but I call him Uncle Victor. And he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he never talked about it. And then one night he had a couple of glasses of wine. And he started telling me some of the things that happened to him. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So, when someone, and maybe towards the end of his life, he just had to get it off his chest.
Sure.
I mean, he told me the story, like, he was very short, very muscular, but he was not much bigger than the M1 Garand rifle he carried. And he had a guy that, so if you know that what happened in the Battle of the Bulge is the same sort of thing that happened in the D-Day invasions. Things go snafu, foobar.
Right.
And there was a guy from another unit that had joined up with his, just to travel along until this got sorted out. And he's talking to the guy, and Victor's short. And apparently a bullet passed over the top of Victor's head right into this guy's neck.
Oh, man.
And he fell over, and Victor, and he said it. I held him, and I watched the life go out of his eyes.
Right.
And so when someone tells you something like that, what can you do but kind of store it away and say, this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, too, you listen to something like that, and people's petty bullshit means so much less.
Oh, I know. I had a friend who, I haven't seen him since the World Cup, but he passed away.
Oh, that's right. You're Canadian, so the Chinese have like the year of the dog and the year of the snake, and you tell time by World Cups, don't you?
Yeah. We tell that, or playoff time. Yeah, he passed away of a heart attack, and I remember probably going, and he was only 47, but he never opened up or anything. I was closer to actually it was his brother-in-law that passed away, but we had a great time, and he'd always come out and support me at shows, and just a really nice guy. And that day, all he was really thinking about was getting gas for the car, and he collapsed dead. And he's gone. And I just think that's fucked up. I hate that. I hate thinking about how you're here one day, you could argue with somebody. I mean, I
Yeah.
God, I argue with so many people, and then at the end of the day, you think, fuck, it was really for nothing. But when somebody like that opens up to you, I used to be a security guard at the Veterans Hospital, and all the guys would say, why do you always sit with the old guys and listen to their fucking stories? And I'm like, are you kidding me? These are some of the best stories. The knowledge that they have is incredible. How can you not? If I go to a party, everybody thinks, well, you should be in the garage doing cocaine or something. But I usually always find the oldest person there and just hover around them and just listen to them tell stories. And I just love a good. I think what made me watch you all the time was because you have a great way of telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is lost in today's culture of, I took the boy to see him. He's 8, and I took him to go see the latest what was it called? Civil War Avengers.
Oh yeah, the Avengers, Captain America Civil War.
Unless there was a fight scene, the boy was fidgeting, couldn't give a shit about the story. Just he wanted to know when the fight scenes were going. I'm like, how? I try and show him like a classic, like a Star Wars. He could give two shits about it, unless they're fighting.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of typical. I mean, one of my favorite films as a kid, and I still love it now, is the 1933 version of King Kong, which is extraordinary because Willis O'Brien, who did the animation on King Kong, I mean, he actually took this 18-inch tall puppet and gave it a personality. Yes. I mean, there was pathos. But, when I was a kid, I was interested in, the dinosaurs and the snakes. And at the end, how cool it was that the biplanes were coming down shooting bullets. And it was only when I was older and I could appreciate the pathos of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So that's...
Do you remember years later when he passed away? He used to collect all the memorabilia. They did a great documentary about him. He's the guy that came up with the word sci-fi. Antimov. what's his name? There used to be a show on TV, and it showed this old guy that would he collected all like the creature from the Black Lagoon. He had its costume. He had King Kong, the real puppet. He had everything. He originally had Bela Lugosi's ring. That when he passed away, of course, as you know, they took it away from him. But he'd always had this old ring of Bela Lugosi, and he would.
But they let Lugosi be buried in his cave, didn't they?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but this guy had everything, and he used to have a little. You were invited into his house, and the sad thing is people are fuckheads, and they would go into the house and steal shit. So it's pathetic, but he was a really nice man, and he would collect all these wonderful knickknacks that people thought were junk, but turned out to be worth a fortune. Just of anything. Like there was an old movie that the very first Brontosaurus was in it, and he had it. He had this junk.
The Lost World.
That's it. And
1925.
Yes, he had that, and he had what was his name? Warren. Oh God, I can't believe I forgot the man's name. But he's the man that came up with the word sci-fi, and anyways, to sit.
I would look it up.
I will look it up.
Do it, but me typing would be
no. I'll put it, and when I get this done, I'll put his name, and everybody be yelling it, going, "Yes, we know, you idiot."
Yeah. Shout it out.
Yeah.
There's like a.
But the stories were unbelievable. He'd tell you these wonderful stories that I loved. These stories. I think this generation. I mean, I love Hitchcock, but the reason why I'll watch a Hitchcock is because it's a wonderful story. There isn't. I really don't get off of somebody getting sliced in half, or I was never into the Friday the 13th kind of thing. I just love a good story, and if it's truth, I love it even more. And that's why there was always this kind of Don Quixote about you, where it's like, I'll come and help you when I need, if you need help, I'll be there. And some of the videos, they were just so hilarious. I mean, you shitting on PZ Myers, and
well, I mean, you're talking about people's stories and listening to people's stories and everything, and you also hit upon something, which is the worst case scenario is to piss someone off, and then they get hit by a car, and you can never have closure. In fact, I mean, something happened to me, and I'm trying not to obsess about it because it was like this casual relationship that I had. I mean, it wasn't romantic, it was platonic, it was mostly an activity buddy, and I just lost it with them over text message.
Yes, I remember you saying
and got ghosted, and it's like the worst feeling in the world, because all you want to do is apologize and explain, and you can't do it. You're denied that, and
yes.
The thing is that when I fail to be nice to someone like that, I mean, I actually have such an overdeveloped conscience that it actually tugs at me. And so a lot of times when I'm doing the videos, a lot of the anger over people like PZ Myers comes from the fact of how incredibly petty they are.
Right.
I mean, PZ Myers is supposed to be, he thinks of himself as the fifth horseman, one of the hereditors of Hitchens' crown or something. But he's a minor league biology professor, hasn't published anything of importance in 20 years, and he's at basically a glorified community college that's the annex of University of Minnesota in Morris. So what he does is he concentrates on running this blog Pharyngula, but more importantly than that, and this is where the rubber meets the road for this guy, he likes to police his comments and eject with aplomb, with his banhammer, with this kind of little squeaky guy bravado, anyone who disagrees with him. And the reason why PZ Myers irritates me so much is that he is so incredibly petty. And you can actually say that about most of the people that were writing for free thought blogs that were involved in Atheism Plus. And now, more recently, the people that are involved in identity politics and what was happening at the University of Missouri with this idiot communications professor, Melissa Click, coming out and trying to prevent a student journalist from videotaping a public event.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, what is going on in the 2.5 pounds of meat between these fucking people's ears?
Yeah.
How do you, first of all, it takes a special kind of narcissism to think that I have the right to speak, I have the right to be heard, I have the right to be safe, I have the right to have a voice. You don't.
Right.
Because I have set up this special little definition of things. I can't be a racist because you need power, and I define myself not having power. In the case of the University of Missouri, one of the powerless black guys was the son of a multimillionaire.
I know. That was, to me, I found that. I'm like, buddy,
it's like,
you're doing this just to cause shit. Like,
well, yeah.
You know,
this is another reason why they do it, and the reason why P.Z. Myers or someone like that does that, because in whatever temporary, ephemeral, unimportant way it raises their profile.
I think it's more than that. You
think it's more than just ego and narcissism?
No, here's a guy that if he didn't have YouTube if there was no YouTube.
Well, he doesn't do YouTube.
Well, people know
one of the signature things about a lot of these people that were involved in Atheism Plus and Free Thought blogs of that is that they could write and they could police Twitter, but they didn't have, I guess, the attention span or the talent to really produce YouTube videos. Except, like I was saying, in the case of someone like Rebecca Watson, who just rambles on for 3 minutes about nothing because she's had half a bottle of wine. Right.
No, I think it's with PZ. I think I think it's the power of the pussy. Here's a guy that he couldn't get laid in a morgue, honestly. Okay. And when he has little girls running up to him, and I mean little girls like teenagers, not little girls, but, like young women, run up to him and think he is a genius. He sees himself as this. I mean, we all heard of Elevatorgate or some. Michael Shermer supposedly raped somebody, and the person ran to.
Well, I mean, just in case someone doesn't know it, I'll run through it. Elevatorgate happened about 2011. Rebecca Watson claimed that. Rebecca Watson was at a skeptics conference, and she was holding court with people in the bar, as she tends to do, until about 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. So there's no witnesses to this, and we have to assume that she wasn't completely sober, so her judgment might have been a bit off. She gets in the elevator, and she claims, now this guy had never come forward. She has never identified him. And in fact, when people had pictures from the conference that said, do you remember who this guy was? She said, I can't remember the name of it, but she had this special condition where she couldn't recognize human faces temporarily. I don't know how it manifests itself. So she gets in the elevator with this guy. And now, the take on it, the uncharitable interpretation is that he asks her if she wants to get a cup of coffee as a sexual come-on. Because everyone knows the phrase, do you want to get some coffee, means let's do it like jackals fucking in a stairwell. Sure. And my interpretation is that she was probably pretty drunk and he was thinking, you want to sober up a bit. So this isn't really that much of an issue. People do come forward and say, oh, well, it's horrible. I mean, you're just not safe anymore. People asking you for coffee in elevators and everything. And then as it went on, her story got better. He was looming over her. And of course, but from minor criticism, I mean, she did a video about this. And then she got some minor criticism. Then she did a follow-up video where she went straight for sexually shaming her critics. That is to say, that anyone who criticized her, she said, well, you should get an inflatable love doll or a watermelon. Guys do that, don't they? They cut a hole in a watermelon. Ugh. And then it went ballistic. And then everyone was saying, oh, my God, everyone is just harassing poor Rebecca Watson. And I'm thinking, the second video, she went there.
Right.
She used standard sexual shaming language
Oh,
But
yeah.
she's not held
But how do
accountable for
you?
that. But every minor criticism against her is considered to be sexual harassment. It's ridiculous.
Well, how I'd be in jail right now. I mean, if that were the case, to say to a woman, "Hey, do you mind to get a cup of coffee?" and they take it as sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, and her actions. I mean, I've watched video of her, with a stripper, and she's pretending to, like, give the guy fellatio, and I'm thinking,
Yeah, someone came. I've seen and used that footage. So
okay,
yeah,
so like, what are you kidding? First of all, I would think you were a loose girl. You were into having sex, and if I wanted to court you, big deal. I just say no to me. Just say no.
no, but
I'm not interested in you.
it's a different mindset. Female sexuality is sex positive, and to be encouraged, male sexuality has to be policed.
Well, that's where a
I mean, that's their
yeah.
attitude. I'm not saying that's the case, but
But
that seems to be
that's
their attitude.
that's
a complete
where
double standard.
and that's where a PZ Myers will pounce and say, I'll fight for you. That
Well,
was that.
there's another famous clip of P.Z. Myers that people have used.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying.
The card trick.
Oh god, that is awful.
He brings this woman up to the podium, and he says, "I'm going to do a card trick, and if I'm wrong, you get this, but if I pick your card, you have to have sex with me." And she kind of goes, "Okay."
Right.
And he repeats it again and again in this sort of clumsy. Now he's officially joking, but he obviously likes the
no, this is a guy who watches porn.
He's doing this to her
yeah.
in front of a group of people. I mean, he's putting on a show. And I was thinking, if Myers saw anyone do that, he would be spending the next 3 weeks denouncing them. But it's okay when he does it.
Right, and that's
a catchphrase that arose out of these people. It's okay when we do it.
But watching that video, do you notice how awkward he is around pretty women? Like, he's just awkward around.
I'm awkward around pretty
but
women.
but not like that. Like, he made him.
Actually, no, that's not exactly true. I'm not awkward. I'm not awkward around beautiful women. Women that are cute and approachable.
Yeah, okay. We all have that. But to a certain degree, if I'm talking to a bunch of people, like if there's a woman in front of me and I think she's attractive, first of all, I make sure that she doesn't have a big boyfriend, or but I'll say something nice to her, but I won't do, like, he just seemed very creepy-ish. It just seemed very
Look, if we get into the Karen Stolsnow thing, there's a name that's going to come up, and that is Reep Payton. And Reep has witnessed, and this is, okay, hearsay, but he said, Peasy likes to go to the bar, have a few, and ogle the 20-somethings. Now, not to say there's anything wrong with that. I would, if I drank, I would have a few and ogle the 20-somethings. So I have to concentrate on one thing over the other. But here's the thing: is it's not the thing itself; it's the hypocrisy.
Right.
And the other thing that you were talking about, besides Elevatorgate,
was it Stolesnow?
No. You said it was a thing that was joined together, Elevatorgate, and I can't remember what the second thing was.
Well, I was gonna bring up the Josh Ghomeshi, the whole thing about.
Oh, Jian Ghomeshi, yeah.
I wanted to bring him up too because his career's done.
Yeah.
Like,
well, if there is a YouTube channel I'll give a shout out called it's titled Feminism LOL, LOL, and it's run by Diana Davison, and she has done a series of videos just dismantling the Jian Ghomeshi case.
Yeah.
The behavior of the police, which was apathetic, the prosecution, and more than anything else, the behavior of this guy, Jesse Brown, who is the ringleader of this. If you remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was preschool sex scares and satanic ritual abuse. There were like the McMartin preschool case and Wiwachi and things like that. And typically they took the same form, as we see now when a guy is accused like this. There would be, in the case of the Martin preschool, there was a mentally unstable mother who claimed that her child was molested. Okay, fine. The police should investigate that. But what the police did was they put out this sort of APB. If anyone else thinks their child was molested, come forward.
Right.
And the floodgates opened. And then the children were, instead of being interviewed by police or someone else, they were interviewed by these very agenda-laden advocates where, in hindsight, when you look at the tapes of these child interviews, they are subtly coaching the children.
Sure. Did he touch you here? They bring up the doll and go, did he touch it right here? He must have touched it right here.
Yeah, it was something like that. Now, in the Jian Ghomeshi case, what you have is Jesse Brown, he starts with one accuser, this woman, Kotari.
Yeah.
Who apparently, her problem is pretty much the same thing that Karen Stollznow had, which is
crazy.
Her claims, well, aside from that, her claim seems to be based upon rejection.
Yeah.
And so he starts with her and then puts out a feeler, and these other women come forward, and Diana Davidson has revealed the name of the third unnamed person. And the reason why that's significant was if she was completely anonymous, you wouldn't know that she had prior made false accusations against someone. So when they get to trial, one of the points that the prosecution makes is, well, you know, these women have such similar stories. How could that be a coincidence? And that's something that would really sell a jury. Luckily, Ghomeshi had a good enough lawyer who dug into it and found that whereas the witnesses say they never talked to each other, Kotari and another person exchanged almost 5,000 emails between each other.
I know, and that was like I was
collusion.
Oh God, I was totally like it was. I don't know about you, but here in Canada, it was like on the news. I remember being town, and he had a huge. I was across the street doing the show across the street from the CBC. They had a huge poster of Ghomeshi. When it came out, what happened, they took his fucking, like it costed a fortune to put it up, but they started taking his poster down. Anything to do with this guy, and I totally believed it. I thought, well, he's a sicko. Did you not see what he did? You know, I mean, holy shit. And now...
Well, you know, when you have witnesses who say, well, we've never talked to each other, we don't know who each other are, and then you discover that they've been emailing each other 5,000 times in the interim, what does that make them?
They should go to jail for that.
Mm-hmm.
They should go to fucking jail for that.
Not only have they gone to jail for that, but in the Canadian media, some of the magazines have repeated the accusations without ever disclosing the fact that not only was Ghomeshi acquitted, but the judge found that the witnesses were deceptive.
Yes.
That they were. I don't know if he actually used the word, but and normally in polite conversation and legalese they don't use the term, but he came very close to actually using the word liar.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I totally remember that, and I thought, why isn't this being covered? Why isn't this like this man's career is done? Like
and you know what the worst thing about Ghomeshi is that this broke 3 weeks after his father died.
Yeah, and I thought,
mean, how emotionally devastating is that?
Oh fuck, the guy was like in Canada. He had the #1 show. He was like he was like a rock star in Canada, pretty much. Like he was the young host, hip. Everybody liked him. And then to see him,
and he was a very soft guy on women. He was very pro-feminist, and I wonder if this is. I mean, and when I say I should qualify this. When you say you're anti-feminist, no one is anti-first or second wave feminism. No one is anti-equality. No one is against equality of opportunity. Maybe some people might be a little wary about equality of outcome considering different choices that people make. But mostly now when people say anti-feminist, they're talking about this third wave intersectional bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, and a lot of men are anti-feminists simply because this third wave intersectional feminist thing seems to be based in a large part of either hatred towards, manipulation of, or the usefulness of men.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the case of Ghomeshi, yeah, he was this popular guy. He was at the top of his game. But the mistake that he made was that he was famous enough and well regarded enough, and he had enough women around him to become a target.
He you know what happened? He fucked the wrong pussy. That's what happened.
No, actually,
I think the girl was absolutely unbalanced. To do that to somebody is insane.
The problem with Koteri was not that he had sex with her. The problem with Koteri was that he didn't have sex with her.
I know, but to do that to a guy, like there are people I hate, but I could not destroy their career like that. No way. Like that is
but there
evil.
are people that would walk into a convenience store and shoot someone over $5. So why would no one believe that there aren't women crazy enough and vindictive enough to do something like this?
Oh, Mykeru, that was evil. Like I watched what was going on, and my stomach was turning. I was going, this guy has been crucified. He had a beautiful career. I mean, he's making millions of dollars. Now he's like a fucking diseased jockstrap.
Right.
He so what? I guess he liked rough sex. I don't, but I guess he liked it. But the girls that he did this to, guess what? They called him the next day. I mean, they were. This is the part that I don't get. If he was such an asshole, why would you tell him on an email that you love him the next day? I don't get that part.
Well, obviously, I mean that wasn't. Well, first of all, the accusations that were made against Ghomeshi, they weren't something that happened last week. Some of these are going back to 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That far off, and when you have someone who not only continues contact with their supposed rapist, but waits over a decade to bring it up. I mean,
yeah.
My suspicion is that someone is reaching that far back because the trail of evidence has degraded, and in a situation where it's her word and she will tend to be believed because it is a political, ideological decision that if you don't automatically believe anyone who brings an accusation that somehow you're against women or you're pro-rape.
Yeah.
But I love the calculus that the people make, that whenever there's a false accusation that's made and it's shown to be false, what people always say is, oh, this is terrible because it makes it so harder for real victims of whatever. And my thought is, what about the fucking person who was accused and destroyed?
Yeah.
Don't you even give a thought about them?
Yeah, that's the first thing that came on Facebook. Like the first thing that women were like putting up, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? This is going to make it harder for others. And I'm thinking, are you insane? Do you not see what happened to Ghomeshi? What about the fucking, no one will ever look at him the same way. I mean, I feel like I should hug the man if I see him, Like I feel,
it's the same feeling that I mean about a lot of things in my more kind of hopeless moments. It's so in what we have in texting and burner phones and email addresses and everything like that. It's so easy to ghost someone, and I find in my experience, and a lot of based upon emails. I mean, it's a self-selected sample, so it really doesn't mean anything. But emails sending me that this happens to guys a lot, and the Ghomeshi thing just says to me, there is no guy who does what he does and does the right thing, and politically and ideologically he was always doing the right thing, or was powerful enough or important enough that he isn't disposable.
Mm-hmm.
And Ghomeshi, I mean, no one gives a thought. I mean, when people talk about this, they continue to talk about the rights of victims and how we address this problem. And I would say, in this case, there was no problem. Mm-hmm. What you have is a bunch of liars who were using these claims as a form for whatever psychological reason in order to be vindictive.
Oh yeah,
which is a great lead into the whole Stolesnow thing.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, she. Just quickly on Ghomeshi. The woman that she's on that popular show. I just did an interview with one of the camera guys there.
Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah. So the character that she plays on that.
That's Kateri. Yeah.
Yeah, her that it's the exact same character, the same type of low life kind of trailer park person would do that to somebody. It was the exact same character. I just thought, man, I mean, you're portraying the same character you did on TV of that. Let's fuck them. Let's scam them. Let's scam the system. Hey, no one's gonna get hurt. So what? He goes to jail for a bit. Like what if the man went to jail? His career's done, and all of this is because he didn't want to have a relationship with you anymore. I mean, what? This is a sickness. She should go to jail for this. I'm sorry. She'd go to jail for what you've done.
Well, the thing that I think about is how in danger Canada must be. I mean, not from the United States for invasion, but I'm thinking more in terms now of Greenland, because she's an active captain in the Canadian Air Force.
Oh.
What kind of fucking people do you have there?
Oh, I don't know. That is incredibly embarrassing. I mean,
she's not reserved. She's not retired.
Oh,
she's
fuck!
Have
you seen Trudeau? Caitlyn Jenner sent him a pair of balls. I mean, we're fucked. We are fucked. I mean, some of the laws here are just absolutely atrocious. Ghomeshi, I don't know if he's going to countersue. If I was him, I would fucking countersue. I would have her in jail. I would,
that never happens. In fact, I've seen news articles coming from out of the UK where they finally sent some woman to prison for 18 months or so on her 11th or 12th false accusation.
Right.
You got to get to that point. I mean, in normal circumstances, there's never, ever, and think about all the not only what you've done to the person that you falsely accuse, which is almost invariably just this sort of vindictive, psychotic thing. It is the violence by proxy equivalent of beating someone with a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the courts, you've got the police, you've got the entire waste of time and effort. And I can't think of any other situation where someone could waste so many people's time, so much money, and do so much damage to a person, and there's never any consequences.
Right. I know, and that to me, I just find that just, I keep saying it's 2016, right? I mean, how, people say we're so civilized. Hey, it's so civilized. And I think, no, if that was me, I think I'd take a baseball bat and end it with people. Because I just, to me, no justice was served there. All that was served there is the man's credibility is gone. His career is gone. His livelihood. What's he going to do now? I mean, I don't see anybody calling him. He's not the story. He was famous for getting guests on and having great conversations with guests that would open up with him. No one's going to fucking open up with him now. He's going to be the guy that they're going to question. They're going to, he's going to have some big name sit there and go, hey, weren't you the guy that supposedly you raped somebody? No, that didn't happen, pal. But let's get back to you.
And the amazing thing, and it gets back to what we were talking before about P.Z. Myers and other things, is that for all this damage done, the motivation of the people that did this was so amazingly petty.
Oh, it wasn't petty. It was evil.
Yeah, there was no greater good in this.
No, that's not petty.
But the problem with, and this happens a lot in cases of gender and sexual politics, the petty stuff always gets dressed up as being some sort of greater good argument, that we're doing it for the victims of harassment or whatever, and it's just nonsense.
Yeah, and it comes at a time when the people that were, I mean, if you pull the fire alarm, I really believe if you pulled it, you need to pay for it, okay? So it needs to go back to the source where this shit came from. And I would have all three of them, all four of them, or whoever. I mean, you should have seen it on TV. They had people from the woodwork come, people that work with him going, I knew something was weird about him. He had a teddy bear, and he had and I'm like, you fucking parasites. You came out of, just to get yourself on TV, CBC, other people, they would come forward and say, I knew something was wrong, but we were all scared. Like, do you know how much of a fool you look like now? I mean, it was like, it's like, let's all burn the witch. The witch is, let's all kill the witch instead of.
Unfortunately, things like the House Un-American Activities Committee and other things that now we realize were fiascos. I mean, this is exactly the point that you're making. At the time of the House Un-American Activities Committee, in which this Senator Joseph McCarthy said that he was ferreting out communist infiltration in government, at the time, when they later spoke to people, the media knew this guy was a circus act. They knew it. Right. They knew, first of all, if you're that close to the guy, you knew he was full of crap. He didn't have any evidence. He was a functional alcoholic, and he was a circus act, but it was too good not to do. And now we have the same thing. If you turn on CNN or network news, especially in the United States, they never talk about issues. They never talk about anything in depth. It's all about the presidential race, but not the presidential race based upon any issues, any facts, any real metrics. It's all about the horse race and personalities, and not whether or not what this person said was true, but did it help them? Did it hurt them? Could someone base a zinger on that? It is the most facile kind of thing, but it's easy to get to that because there's a tendency in the way that people think. And there's a philosopher, Larry Loudon, who said that, there are no such thing as factual disagreements. I mean, if you think about it, if you could settle disagreements by fact, there would be no conflict between creationism and evolution. Right. There wouldn't be flat earthers, anything like that. What invariably happens when there's a factual disagreement, people appeal to method. How did you get that fact? And in the case of evolution, we'll go up to the next step. We'll say radiocarbon dating shows this. And the creationists will say, well, radiocarbon dating ain't all it's cracked up to be. But finally you get above fact and method is value. And that's where the real argument lies. In the values that people think they're expressing by holding on to this idea, whether or not it's factually true. Mm-hmm. And so in the case of Jian Ghomeshi, and we were talking before about this, the reason why no one thinks about Jian Ghomeshi, and everyone says, oh, this is going to make it so hard for the victims of rape, because that's the value. Yeah. The value is not fact. The value is not damage to this guy's life. The value is not making a three-ring circus out of the court system. The value is let's protect women. Mm-hmm.
Well, it was funny. I got into
which is an admirable thing to do, and as a male, I'm hardwired to do that. Yeah. But at what cost? But at any cost. And especially here's a metric that sometimes it's hard for people to put on. Yeah, you want to protect women, but sometimes there's women who just aren't worth it.
Yes. Yeah, there are such things as garbage.
And now I'm not saying that they should be abused or anything like that.
No.
What I'm saying is that when you have someone who is just a bald-faced liar, to continue to say we have to protect her is ludicrous.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to protect her from if her story is untrue.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, protect her from, the average white male, walking around. I mean, to me, it's just people love drama.
Yeah. Well, here, and this is a reason why people should watch Diana Davidson's stuff on feminism. Lol. She just did a video about Jesse Brown and what a joke the police are. And I think it's this video, and she made an excellent point, which is the reason why the courts get involved and why there should be consequences for someone who's accused of rape or assault is because they represent a danger. However, like you were saying before, if someone goes back to their supposed rapist and writes them a letter saying, I love your hands, or I want to see you again, or continues the relationship, to the extent where
she gave him a blowjob the next day.
I don't know. I think it was a hand job, but
yeah.
But when that happens, now even the victim of this is not making a case that this person should be removed from society to protect anyone, particularly her.
Mm-hmm.
She's already, by her own action, said he's not a danger. And so I can understand the protective, and in a way, this is sort of you can see this as extrapolation of maybe the most basic good intentions that people have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the extrapolation. I mean, it's a silly analogy, but when we were in small hunting-gathering groups, you kind of hardwire a behavior a certain way. Protect the women because they're actually important. If you want to continue maintaining the population, and so this sort of gets hardwired into our brain. And what we don't realize is that we are extrapolating through the court systems and these large organizations those same urges, but now they've expanded to such a degree that they're ludicrous. There's a book, I don't remember the author's name, but it's called The Hare and the Tortoise, and it makes the point that technology changes very quickly. Culture changes a little more slowly, but it's not that slow. I mean, you can look in the United States, the difference between 1960s Jim Crow laws and Bull Connor and what we have today. So culture can change for the better. Human beings are the same as we were 35,000 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
And so now we have these sort of evolutionary psychological motivations that are being fed through these mechanistic systems. And again, you can almost analogize what's going on with YouTube. It's a dumb mechanistic system. And when you have laws that shield someone who's making an accusation so that no one can independently check out their claims, or in the case of the way that Title IX has been applied in colleges in the United States, where someone who's accused of sexual assault, they can't question the witness, they can't bring their own witnesses, they really can't investigate, all they can really do is confess.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a dumb mechanistic system.
No, I agree with you. It's terrifying. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, one of my, and I think about it a lot when I think of Ghomeshi. I think about, you should have seen the media around this man. He couldn't walk. He's looking at the floor, and one of my memories is a cameraman fell down, and Ghomeshi helped him up.
Yeah.
And it was like the guy used to work for Ghomeshi, and they both, their eyes, they just kind of looked at each other, and it just, like, now I know what it meant. It's kind of like, fuck, man, like you are being put through the ringer, you know, and that's why.
Ghomeshi was probably looking at the guy like it was 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, like the look of shock on that man's face, just like it. It
Well,
was.
it's and the thing is, when it's good to have Ghomeshi as an exemplar of something, but you got to realize that this happens all over the place, all of the time, to a lot of people who are so small that their destruction isn't even a blip on the radar.
Oh God, I saw this thing where a woman, she photoshopped because she didn't want her husband having the child anymore. She photoshopped bruises on the child. Photoshop bruises, saying that the husband has been beating the child. The child said no, no such thing has happened. And people looked at it. He had to pay a fortune to have somebody show that these were forged. I mean, the only people making money here are the fucking lawyers.
You want to hear a story? I'll give you a story about why people who make false accusations like this, and especially invent abuse, enrage me.
Yes.
When I was living in Arizona, and I had a girlfriend, and originally her sister was living with us, and the thing about this woman was she had her first child when she was 16, and so she got a lot of validation from her relationships with men. And at the time that I knew her sister, she was dating this guy he called himself Persian. He was Iranian, and not to disparage anything, but he comes from a culture that is actually pretty patriarchal. I mean, he would get mad if she touched the thermostat without telling him. So she moves on. She goes on to Las Vegas. She meets this guy, Michael. Her name was Rachel. And they're off doing their own thing. She's working food service in the casinos, and he's doing something or other. I don't know what it is. But there's a holiday just before I came down from Flagstaff, and we met in Laughlin, Nevada. And we're with my girlfriend's family, and her sister is there, and this guy is there. And we're playing Hungry Hippos with the kids, just hanging out. But I am noticing this guy. He doesn't make eye contact. He's looking around, not a lot. And Rachel seems kind of tense. But I don't think anything of it. I go back to Flagstaff a few days later, and the phone rings. And I mean, this is 94, so there's no caller ID. It's in a dorm room. There's no caller ID or anything. So I pick up the phone, and my girlfriend's on the other end. And she says, he killed her.
Oh.
And I knew exactly what she meant. And apparently what had happened was Rachel had finally had enough of this alcoholic, obsessive gambling, fucking jealous piece of shit. And she loaded up her Mustang with her belongings surreptitiously. And she had with her 2.5-year-old daughter, who was in the backyard. Okay, and it's a Vegas backyard. There's no grass. It's just a sort of gravel or stones or anything but the kids in the backyard. And we're never going to be really sure what happened, but obviously there was some sort of confrontation. And at a certain point, this guy had a secret too. 2 weeks prior, he had bought a .22 caliber rifle.
Oh.
Now, Rachel didn't go for the door. She didn't go for where, the garage where her car was, because her daughter's in the backyard. So rather than taking the path that could actually offer her escape, she tried to get out through a ground floor window to get to her daughter. And they figure the first thing he did was shoot her in the leg. Now, who knows what was going on in his mind, if he was trying to scare her, or he's thinking, I've got to stop her, and this is the way to do it. But for whatever reason, that was the point of no return. And she fell into the backyard face down. And before she could get up, he leans out the window and shoots her 5 times in the back of the head.
Gee, fucking hell.
She had to have a closed casket funeral because not only did the bullets exit through her face, but the Vegas police investigating him And by him, I mean he wandered around for an hour, called his father in a panic, and then finally put a bullet in his head.
Right.
And we thought the only saving grace in all this was that this child, this 2.5-year-old child, didn't remember, except about a year or so later, she offered that she remembered Mommy laying in the backyard, clawing at the ground, saying, no, no, no.
Right. Right.
And so, when someone uses makeup to forge abuse, it infuriates me.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm not trying to kiss your ass. I agree with you. It pulls at your heartstrings, and it I mean, the mental hell, never mind the physical, but there's such a thing as a mental hell that will drive you insane. You know, for that kid, it's going to be a mental hell. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was years ago, and she's grown up, and she's in the army now. So, I mean, I think she's, I don't even know if she still remembers it. You know, I've lost contact with those people.
But you remember it. Is, that's the thing.
I can understand the essential tension because, you want to protect people from that sort of thing happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, at the time I was working. I was in Flagstaff, and my girlfriend was working for Child Protective Services as an investigator. She didn't know that her own sister was in fear for her life.
Right.
Now, what do you do then? I mean, you can have outreach. You can tell people whatever. If Rachel had just said, I'm afraid of this guy, when she was down there with us, she could have come home with us out in the middle of nowhere in Golden Valley, which is just over the mountains from Laughlin, and we had lots of dogs, and we were heavily armed, and he would have never made it there.
Right.
But she didn't. So what do you do?
Right. And that's the horrible thing, that I replay shit in my head all the time, and I always think maybe if I did this, or maybe if I,
Oh, we did that a lot, yeah. Why didn't we see the signs? Why didn't we pry a bit? Yeah. So, I mean, on one hand, I'm not saying that all abuse stories are bullshit and we shouldn't do anything and screw you, you're on your own. What I'm saying is that we have to have it to be factually based.
Yeah.
We have to be here's the thing. If Jian Ghomeshi was accused of cheating on his taxes or shoplifting from a Walmart or something, no one would give a shit. Why? Because that's not important.
Mm-hmm.
Rape, sexual assault, abuse, that is important. And when you were talking about, people should be prosecuted for this, they should, because the accusation of something that isn't frivolous. I'm not saying this is frivolous. It's we don't care. You're on your own. These are accusations of terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible things that we actually have to do everything possible to protect people from. But when someone lies in order to sort of put that mantle of victim on themselves so that they get this automatic protection, and also use it as a stick to beat someone else with.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's what I don't get, Mykeru, is the blackness of your heart to do something like that. I mean, I'm an atheist, and people will sit there and go, don't they have morals? Don't they get morals from the Bible? Fuck, don't you just get morals from yourself? Like, do you not know when it's wrong to do something? How do you sleep at night? How do you not think? I mean, I remember stealing a chocolate bar when I was little, and my parents owned a store, so I know that if I stole that chocolate bar, if somebody stole it off my parents, that's money from them working their asses off.
Yeah.
I remember going back to the store, the little Chinese man, I remember giving him $1. He's like, what are you doing? And I was just like, nothing. I was so embarrassed. He's like, here, and he's trying to hand me a chocolate bar because he knew my favorite chocolate bar, and I was like, no, it's for you. And he's like, here, it was only 75 cents, but here's a quarter. Like, what's wrong with you? And I felt like shit. Okay, and
you know, isn't it funny that we have to dig back to our childhood to kind of get a frame of reference?
Yeah.
Because you know what I was talking before about. I mean, having an argument, first of all, I've had bad experiences with text messaging. I had a girlfriend that lived in Richmond.
Me
I
too.
would go down there, and you know, we would hang out and talk and do stuff and make love like badgers. And I'd get in the car, I'd be driving back, I'd be an hour out, and bang, she wants to have a relationship critical conversation in text messaging, and it just made me crazy. And that really was the catalyst that ended the relationship. And this most recent thing was I was just in a really foul mood about a bunch of things that hit me, you know, YouTube and the IRS and all this stuff hit me all at the same time. I was just trying to plan a little outing for us, and she was just not responsive on text. And in fact, she said a couple of things that were kind of terse, and just because text is the kind of thing where you don't have the person in front of you constantly updating you as to why you like this person in the first place. I mean, you can go places that you wouldn't go. And I was a complete asshole. I was such an amazing asshole. I mean, I could say that I approached the line of being psychotic. And by saying I approached the line, that's an indication I not only crossed the line, I probably, you know, went around a couple of times. And so this person, I'm never going to hear from them again. And, you know, I got to live with that. And I just felt so horrible about it because I actually have a conscience. I had to think about, when was the last time I felt this viscerally horrible about doing something like this to something so innocent? And I remember when I was a kid, I was in the backyard and I had a BB gun and the sights were off and I was shooting cans and I couldn't hit anything. And a little sparrow floats down in my 8-10-year-old brain. I think the only way I'm not going to hit this sparrow is if I aim right at it. And I was wrong. The thing dropped over dead. I felt awful.
Right.
You almost have to go back to those earliest memories of regret and shame to really tap into what is happening in your conscience. But the thing is, these people that are making these accusations, as I said before, there are people that will shoot other people for $5 and they don't give a shit because they are lacking something. Now, we usually think, you know, it's men that are lacking this. We tend to ennoble women and say, you know, they're the fairest sex, they're nurturers, da-da-da-da-da-da. But I think there's the same range between conscience and sheer sociopathy.
No,
and I
women.
think someone who makes that claim and it's shown to be false, and especially if these three witnesses who colluded among each other and then laughed, thinking, I hope Ghomeshi gets fat in prison.
Fuck, man.
We're going to destroy him. Okay, that's not nurturing. That's not ennobled.
No.
That's sociopathy.
Yeah.
These people are mentally ill.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, people say to me, they go, you know, who are worse, men or women? They can be just as bad. Like, give me a break. I mean, women could be, you know, you ever get a group of guys together, we'll laugh our heads off. But you ever hear women together? They're pigs. They can be pigs if they want to. Okay? You know, if a guy says something about women don't give each other shit the same way guys do. Are you kidding me?
And guys give each other shit, and this amuses us. You get points for style. We think this is funny because no one wants a thin-skinned guy.
Right.
So we're always in the process of kind of toughing each other up. And it's also a subtle indication maybe you should work on this or that. You know, your hair looks like shit or something like that. It's a way to approach it, but also it's just sort of fun because it's like it's play. It's like, you know, verbal roughhousing. Oh God! And in fact, and this happened more than a couple of times. I had friends, and I'm in the gym, and we're just giving each. There's one guy, he just gives me shit, and I give him shit back, and he'll say, "How you doing, cream puff?" And he'll be doing something, and he'd be done with it. And I'd say, you know, why don't you throw some man-sized weights on there? And this woman went and complained that we were being hostile.
Oh.
And the two of us had to go up to the manager of this gym and say, we weren't being hostile. We were just giving each other shit.
Right. No, you're not
Now,
giving each other shit. You're just talking.
The counter. The big ass guy, he nodded his head and knew what he was talking about. The woman, she kind of shook her head like, "What do you mean?"
Ugh.
She was just not familiar with the concept. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, aren't there a lot of women out there who not only think that they understand women, but they also understand men, and understand men better than men understand themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And yet they don't understand that guys do this, and it doesn't hurt, it doesn't bother us. We think it's amusing.
And men have been doing that since the beginning of time. Okay? That's what guys do. We have to do that. You know, yeah. It's just a fun thing to do. Men are weird, I'll give you that. But women can be. Have you ever seen women at a strip joint? They're out of their fucking mind. Okay, so.
Yeah. I've had a couple friends that were strippers, and I would go there and kind of prime the pump.
God, it's just like women could be just as brutal as men. You know, I mean, there are, when you think of evil, good and bad, hey, you get some really great guys, really great girls, but you can get some evil bitches and some evil dudes. And please don't tell me that, all men are evil and some women are. Fuck, I've seen some women, like my ex is just, everybody says that. Exes are crazy. Well, you ever do this? You ever do this where, I've done this where anybody I've ever crossed, I try. I really do. If I feel like I did them wrong, I really go looking for them and tell them I'm sorry. And it's funny because people will go, "Are you dying?" And it's like, no. It just bugs me that I did that to you. And they're like, that was fucking 18 years ago. And I go, I know.
That's why this ghosting incident, I mean, I would crawl through shit and broken glass to apologize to this person. There's no way that I could possibly do it. And in fact, I mean, I could do stuff like actually, find out where they are, send them a letter or something.
You should.
But in the atmosphere that exists now, that would be considered stalking. So
yes, it would. Yes. And I had that too.
So I have to, as painful as it is and as shitty as I feel, I just got to let it go.
No, you do it once.
But
if it bugs you that
much. I
much.
let it go doesn't mean I'm letting it go.
No, don't let it go. If it bugs you that much, I would give it a bit, a couple months, and then just write a nice letter and send it off. I mean,
I don't know where they live. I would have to do exertions to do that.
I know people in the mob. We could find her, and within 15 minutes or something.
I'll pass on that. I'm just. In this case,
it sucks. What the problem is?
They have my number, and if they ever want to accept my apology, and I don't even have to make amends. But
I think they'll call you.
I mean, that's the shitty thing about having a conscience.
But you know what it is,
like that.
But Mykeru, you, I could tell, like, and I'm the same way. I could count. I know thousands of people, okay, but I really like my friends. I could count on one hand. Okay, and when I let somebody in and they're my friend for life. I mean, I've had friends that I hang out with. People are hilarious. They're like, "You guys are still together?" It's like it's 35 years. And I'm like, "Yeah." It's just, and people say I'm shy with others, and it's just I have a group of friends, and I just like to keep it that way. But if I let you in, you're in. I'll do anything for you. You need anything, I will be there. Okay.
Well, there's the key difference between having a small circle of good friends and a lot of friends.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of friends, I mean, a lot of people, and yeah, okay, I'm not just talking about Facebook friends. Maybe I'm more typically talking about what women do when they network and they have all these people. Yeah. When you have all of those people, by definition, most of them are really superficial relationships because no one has the time to invest. And in a small circle of friends that I have, and even this person that was casual activity partner, I was doing advanced work to go to an art gallery because no matter how small the relationship is with me, I invest in it, which is why,
right,
among other things, I try to, as much email as I get or comments on the site I get, I actually try to sit down and answer them.
Yes.
And I never sit down and say, "Oh, thank you for writing, I appreciate it," but something that would take 5 seconds to do. I actually read people's stuff and respond to it, and I tend to write really long emails anyway. But in fact, one of the most fun things that happened to me was I'm sitting there and I get an email, and I start reading it. It's this woman in Portugal, and she prefaces it by saying, I know you're really busy, and I know you're not going to have a chance to read this, much less respond. So before I got any further, I hit the reply button and said, yeah, I'm reading it, going to respond. Just give me a second.
Yeah, I love that.
Sent it off.
That's great.
But that's what you want. You want engagement. In the people that in your life, you want to have an investment in someone.
Well, you want
that relationship, and here's the thing. Because we're stuck in Ghomeshi, and we're probably going to stay there for the duration.
No, we won't.
which is, if you do this to a person that you were somehow romantically interested in, what kind of investment did you have in them?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not. When I say that, I'm not talking about specifically with him. I'm saying generally with anyone. What kind of relationships do you have? And especially in the case of, the video that I just put up, when bitches collide, about these two women I knew. After the fact, when someone does something like that to you, you think, Jesus Christ, what kind of investment did you have in me? Mental illness plays a role in this. So,
but I know people like that. I had a girlfriend that honestly, like, it was just really weird. Like, they could, there's some women that I've known forever, and they really do care, and we're friends, and they'll just say hi, and because I went to high school with them, or they see me at shows, and they just, it's kind, and they generally, you could tell when somebody says, hello, I haven't seen you in a while. You could tell that they actually mean that. And I remember going out with this girl, and I went out with her for like 4 years or whatever, and it was like an on-off switch. Like any girlfriend that I've ever had, I've always thought about them, or not thought about, like, just, I hope they're okay. I hope that I can't just move on, or I always want to know if you're okay,
Yeah.
Just,
and even the woman that I did this video about, who falsely accused me months after the fact. I mean, first of all, mental illness does come into play, but I did reconnect with her years later, briefly, just to see how she was doing. Because, the idea that you could have been intimate with someone and at some point thought of your life with this person.
Yes.
Sure, it didn't work out. There's that. It's hard to completely write them off.
Right,
and what happens, at the end of a relationship, even if it goes sour, mainly what you don't miss the person. You miss the promise that they presented. It's almost like you could see this sort of alternative timeline that you missed.
Right.
And that's the thing that you hold on to.
Well, the one person, I kind of remember how nice they were, I kind of remember the good, it was kind of like the world, money. Once they saw that, money makes the world go around, that all of a sudden they change overnight. It's just, and then that you kind of remember them as that sweet person, but then you remember something in them made them change, and you're thinking, oh, I remember the good party, and not the crazy, materialistic. I'll never forget this. This is when I knew she was pure evil. What kind of girl says this to you? Just says, we broke up, and this is what she says to me. She's dating this new guy who happened to be 20 years her senior, and she was 21 at the time. And I'll never forget this. She said two things to me that always bothered me. She says, I met a new guy, and I go, okay, how is he? And she goes, he's financially secure.
And she actually used that phrase.
Yes, I swear to you, that's what she said. And
Well, people change because either they have fears or that they have something that's going. They had some passion in their life that wasn't working out for them, and they're trying something different. And I don't. When she says she has a man who's financially secure, and it implies that somehow that's what's important to her, and she's not there for him in and of himself, but what he can provide for her. But the sense is provide, and when you have women who entirely want a guy to be a provider, that's motivated by fear.
And here's the second thing. I agree with you there. And here's the second thing. And I think it's also she's a fucking bitch, because when people say, "Hey, you watch The Sopranos? Really cool show." I watched a little of it, but I couldn't take watching those shows like Mob Wives and stuff like that, because I thought these are some of the most disgusting people on the planet. I mean, to be a wife of one of these mobster guys and to think that, like, where did you get your money? You killed somebody, you threatened somebody, you ripped off somebody, somebody's miserable, somebody's buried, and I'm wearing this fur coat. I would be... Well,
I mean, they're empty people.
They're disgusting people.
Really, traditionally in the mafia, for wise guys, you not only had a wife, but you had at least one other girlfriend on the side.
Sure, of course.
And it's not like your wife didn't know about it.
Yeah, but
her priorities are different.
But to me, that is the
it's
part.
Not a love match.
Yeah, the part that I hated the most of The Sopranos was his wife. I thought the wife was the biggest monster of them all. She knew what he was doing, but yet she kind of still stayed there. Still kind of knew that, he's kind of the head boss. He gets guys killed. I'll just stay in this big, beautiful house. I got,
Not only does she know that he's doing this and he's getting guys killed, but think about like a policeman's wife who actually loves him. What is her fear every time he leaves?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But in this case, in the case of the Sopranos or the woman who's associated with a monster, she knows this guy doing what he's doing could very easily end up with him getting dead. And, well, she doesn't care.
No. Big deal. When you're driving around downtown, you see hookers that look like they're on crack, and your hubby's making...
they are.
Yeah, and they're making... And your hubby's making money off of them opening up their legs, and you're wearing your fur coat and in your Mercedes. That's kind of fucking evil. Okay?
Yeah, but the same. Someone on my Twitter feed, I retweeted it, pointed out the fact that Beyonce's clothing line, which is supposed to empower women, are actually disempowering women in sweatshops that are making a couple of bucks a day at most.
Yeah.
So that's the same metric, isn't it? Beyonce, I live in a big house. I'm selling this clothing line. It's my image, and I know that this is produced with virtual slave labor.
Yeah, and that's why I don't.
Some of the people in the sweatshop, it's not a case where they're down working at the mill and they're not making a lot of money like in the 19th century. Their movements are restricted.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely. That's where. I don't know. Like that's
acceptable.
You have one life. If I was like Tom Cruise or Beyonce, I would sit there and go, I'm worth $200 million or whatever. I'm going to have these made in a factory here, not there, here. And I'm going to hire people. Like if I was born in Detroit, I would just hire people from Detroit. It's going to cost a little more, but fuck, I got $200 million, man. Like how many fucking jets do I need? Like what is the deal? What is the deal? How big of a yacht? Like they were showing a show the other day. They had yachts the size of cruise ships, okay, that one guy owns. A guy will own a ship that is worth $100 million and could give two shits about you or the kids starving. There are people in India that literally siphon through sewers to try and find bits of gold. Like, so if I, you know.
You know who I have enormous respect for? Dave Chappelle, the comedian.
Yeah.
Because Dave Chappelle, he did the successful show. He was on the top of his game. And they just wanted him to do more and more and more. And he said, screw you guys. I have $50 million. I'm going to go hang out with my family on my ranch.
Right.
He said, the way that I live, I have $50 million. This is going to last me for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I don't have to do this. I mean, that isn't that why you want the money in the first place?
Yeah, totally. I totally get that. I totally get guys. One of my favorite. I love Pink Panther movies. I love old movies, and one of my favorite. Peter Sellers. I heard he was quite the asshole in real life, but I'm a huge fan of Peter Sellers.
Yeah, he had. Well, there were a couple of just quickly because you brought it up. There were a couple of things going on. Someone commented that Peter Sellers was a fat man in a thin body, so there was always that tension of he would have been happier if he was eating. Also, too, he was the kind of personality that there was one incident where he had an argument with someone, and he left, and like an hour later, he comes back and he jams a knife into the door. And you think, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
You're supposed to walk away and you're supposed to calm down. But he had what was referred to as a right man complex.
Right.
He walks out of there and it starts to ferment.
Yes.
And he thinks about it, and now he's working himself up, and then he's got to go back and release this energy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, he had an interesting psychological
problems. But I still loved his movies.
And perfectionism.
I hate when people...
Well, here's something, this is something that I find really, really creepy, and this is applicable to more than Peter Sellers. People that knew him best considered that he was such a good actor in taking on these other personalities, because he had no core personality himself.
Yeah, nobody knew who the hell they were talking to. I remember seeing John Cleese talk about that. When Cleese was starting off with the Goon Show, or the Goonie Show, what was it? The
Goon Show.
The Goon Show. And he was starting off, and he was hearing Peter Sellers. He was waiting in the kitchen, and Sellers was walking around the house, changing his voice. And he met Sellers, and they asked Cleese, so what was he like? And he goes, I don't know. I don't know who the hell I met that day. It was Peter Sellers, but he was trying to find his voice for the day. So he was one of these guys that you never got Peter Sellers. I think he was just one of these guys that, just a weird guy that when the cameras rolled was incredibly talented, but was it totally... I meet guys that are brilliant stand-ups. You get them off stage, they're the biggest fuck-ups on the planet. They cannot carry a conversation. Okay, but for some reason you get them in front of an audience, they have they'll have like 200-300 people eating from the palm of their hand because they could talk to an audience.
Yeah,
they can't do that one-on-one. They can't function. And I think that was kind of like a Peter Sellers. He cannot talk to you one-on-one. The whole time he's talking to you, he's thinking about, I got to do another movie. I got to do this. He's all about career. Yeah. And
I've heard that about a lot of actors and performers and everything, that they need an audience. They need to be on, or otherwise there's nothing there. And I've done a lot. I haven't done any in a long time, but I did theater in college, and I was a member of a theater company, and I've known people like that, and I also understand what happens to you when you're in front of people and there's an audience and you're energized and you're thinking on your feet and maybe doing new things. You're in the moment by definition, because you can't let your mind wander, because that's not going to end well. So I can understand how for people who are kind of empty inside to begin with, how this is their drug.
Yeah, did you ever see that?
This is what makes them a person.
Yeah, but did you ever see that? He was also... Now, I saw a documentary on it where his son was trying to be really nice, and I heard John Lennon wasn't really nice to his son, and
Lennon wasn't really nice to anyone.
The son put a racing stripe down his dad's brand new GTO Ferrari, and his dad, Peter Sellers, went up to his son's room and started breaking his toys. and telling him, "How do you like that?" I mean, yeah, it's fucked up. I know, and I could see that. Like, I could see a guy, because once you're handed success all the time, I mean, he had a great radio show, then he got into movies. It was always, it was never like once he got into the movies, I think that it turned into, I want to be like a James Bond. I don't want to be laughed at. But it was kind of, yeah, it was a famous director that said, what's his name? Al Bundy from, he was in a movie, and they brought Al Bundy in this serious movie, and he played a serious part, and he said it was a huge mistake because everybody.
Ed O'Neill, his name.
Yeah, that guy. As soon as they saw his face on it, and it was supposed to be a serious scene, everybody started to laugh and say, "That's the guy from Married with Children." So he Sellers did not want to always be the funny guy. He wanted to be known as the romantic lead sometimes, and I think that got to him. But one of my favorite,
he never really got that, did he?
No, not at all. I mean, he died at, what is it, 44, 45?
Yeah.
So, and then one of my favorite parts, he wasn't even in the movie. I remember an old detective when Peter Sellers just passed away, and they had to, he died, and then they had to get the rest of the movie. They filmed the rest of the movie, him missing, and they would have
it was a Pink Panther movie.
Yes. Well, they had a detective going out looking for him, and they went up to go. Remember his old detective, the guy that used to help Clouseau all the time. Not. Yeah,
that's hard. I mean, when something like that happens, you should just scrap it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fuck it. It's over. It's done. But back then,
but that's just, we got momentum. If we put something out, and we can say it was say.
Well,
Peter
they're trying to
Sellers
make money.
We'll make
they're
a few bucks.
They're like, he died. This was the last movie he was in. Let's go see it. I mean, it worked for me when John Candy passed away. I was like, I got to go see this Wagons West piece of shit, and it was just, I just wanted to see him.
John Candy was a Canadian institution.
Yeah, but I love John Candy. So it was just
Second City and all that.
Yeah. I mean, it just crushed me. But my favorite part was the old detective said, when this lady went to go look for him, and she asked him, and he was in the French Riviera on his little boat fishing, and she said, "So this is what you do now?" And he goes, "Yes." And you catch fish, and he reels up his rod, and he shows that he doesn't even bait his hook. He says, "This is what I do all day." So I get the Dave Chappelle thing. I'm just done dealing with people. I mean, it's just with Dave Chappelle, when people, what happened was somebody laughed, and it was a white guy, and they laughed in a certain way, and it just, he looked at the audience differently, and he just said, "You know what? I'm not the black guy, clown guy for you. I'm not," so that got to him, and I think that also.
And Dave Chappelle was in league with people like Chris Rock and George Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
He was an observational comedian.
Yeah. So he totally. I mean, he had the money. They were offering him a fortune. He said, "Fuck it." I mean, I would. I mean, the pressure. I mean, those shows were amazing. The pressure that he had was just, I think, too much. And when he would go and do stand up, people would yell out stupid shit like. They would constantly yell out. Remember when he used to do the famous. I can't believe I forgot his fucking name.
I'm Rick James.
I'm Rick James, bitch. He would try and do stand up, and he was trying to tell a story.
And some people, asshole shouted out, "I'm Rick James, bitch."
Yes. And to me, I wanted to tell you, when I sent you that clip of me doing a bit of stand up, what happened is this happens all the time. You get a woman, and it's 90% of hecklers are women that see that they're not the center of attention. And they want to be the center of attention, and they can't take it, and they have to fuck up your story, your set, and it infuriates me. And
it's weird because I was watching that clip, and I was trying. And again, I've been, because of events that happened, I've been just on this jag of digging into childhood memories, to see where I got to where I am. And I remembered it wasn't even Boy Scouts; it was Cub Scouts. And in my middle school, we had a meeting in what was the cafeteria of this middle school, And they had me hold the flag, and my job was to go out there and say, will you please join me in reciting the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance? And I got the flag, and I'm like this little kid, and there's all these people, their parents and everything. And I'm like shaking a bit because I'm a shy kid. I mean, I actually didn't get over stage fright until I was in college. And it's one of the reasons why I did it as a kind of shy, introverted kid. It was me doing the most difficult thing that I could until I could do it. But anyway, I say, would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? And this fucking bitch, she's kind of leaning. I remember this. She goes, no.
Mm-hmm.
I think, what motivates you to do something like that?
Yeah, I know.
Especially to a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I have had in theater, I've had I was doing Antigone and I was playing Creon, and I'm walking, and since it's a black box production, there's no set. I mean, we actually didn't really have costumes. We didn't use masks for the chorus or anything like that. But I'm walking around, and at one point I walk over. And now the first row of the audience is maybe a couple of feet in front of me, and I'm reciting lines as Creon. My friends, for what concerns the state, the gods who tossed it on this angry surge of strife. And someone starts talking to me.
Yes.
To the performer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, where do these people? And of course, you know, I was lucky enough in high school. I had this director, David Rowe, and a costume designer who was the first flamboyantly gay man I've ever met, John Fisher. And what they used to do was, in technical dress rehearsal, we would have to go through what we were doing, and they would go into the costume and put on like fright wigs and funny clothes and floppy hats, and they would actually get between you and who you're talking to and start making faces and doing things like this. God forbid you broke character.
Right.
At that point, fun and games was over, because the point was, I'm not trying to amuse you. I'm trying to see how disciplined you could be.
No, I've physically gotten off. I'm famous for getting off stage and beating the shit out of somebody in the audience. So I've and the tape, it sucked because it was another comic that taped it, but it should have been a lot better.
I'm going to say mostly women, drunk women that
yeah,
do that.
I mean, I had my first Letterman audition. It was a big, big thing, and there were only 10 comics allowed to audition for the Letterman show. And they had, huge, like they had the guy, they told you, they said they're going to have a cameraman come out on stage with you, and he's going to tape, like there's going to be one camera up front, but there's going to be a guy on stage with you, which is very distracting. But it's like, okay, this is for the Letterman show. This is what we've been working for. Everybody's in the green room. They bring me up. I come up. A woman yells out, how's everything going, or whatever I said, and she yells out, "Show us your dick."
That's appropriate.
But it's like, do you not understand what? The audience was already told what was going on here tonight. These guys are, somebody here is going to go on the Letterman show. They're going to try out for it. It's very important, blah, blah, blah. And she just kept yelling out this shit. Just fucking. And I've never wanted to, I remember looking at her thinking, when I see you outside, I'm going to punch you so fucking hard in the jaw. I don't care if I get arrested, I mean, you are a fucking lowlife to do this right now, And she did that to another comic too, and me and the other comic, we were planning on fucking just, anyways. But
I know it's really hard when you're performing anything and someone starts doing something like that. But I mean, you can't resort to anger. You can ignore her, or
you have to. You have to.
And remember, and this is like a really old one that comedians use. But I remember the first time I ever heard it was Steve Martin. I think it's on one of his records. Yeah, it is. And Steve Martin is doing a performance on one of his Let's Get Crazy or whatever record it was.
Right.
And someone yells out, he had previously done this routine where he said, I wouldn't believe in anything if it wasn't for my lucky astrology mood ring. And so he's going on, and some guy shouts out right in the middle, he says, hey, show us your mood ring.
Yeah.
And Martin pauses and said, yeah, I remember when I had my first beer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I use that sometimes. And it's funny.
But I'd never heard it before. I thought originally, I found it, it's like one of those stock things, but it destroyed the guy. And the other one is, lady, I'm working here. I don't go to where you work, knock the cock out of your mouth.
It's I know all those, but it's like, when you're kind of, it's kind of like.
What I'm saying is not to use the stock ones, because this
is
an exercise in improvisation.
I use the one where I whatever comes to your head. I can't think anything that comes to your head, but what I'm saying is when it's something important, like it would be like. Just say
you're setting up, the timing's there, you've led people along this far.
There's fucking tons of agents there. Your nerves are shot. You're like, I just want to do well. And you're just constantly being heckled. At the worst, there could be 50 fucking shows of just playing in front of a bunch of nobodies, right? But when it's like an important show, we're talking the Letterman show. You get one chance and you get this. It's like, yes, of course this happens to me. Of course this happens to me. Why wouldn't this happen to me? So it's like, anyways, I hope she died a horrible death. But,
actually, one time I was doing this improv piece where it was loosely structured, but we would do things like have stuff under people's seats and pull it out and they throw it at, and we'd have to incorporate it or flip randomly through a dictionary and pick out a word. And there was a woman and her boyfriend, and luckily there was an empty seat. And she starts talking and throwing stuff out. She's not participating like everyone else. She's trying to throw you. So I jumped up into the audience and sat in the seat next to her, and I made her the show.
Right.
Just like she wanted. And, here's the thing. When you have someone doing that, they can yell out shit. You pull them into it. And I've seen comedians do this, pull someone out on stage and say, you want to be a comedian? Go ahead. And they can't compete. They just don't have it.
Well, it's easy to sit back. It's the whole thing where I love it when you're like, who said that? And everybody's eyes
look at this one person.
And it's like now and again I'll go just
because they know her. She's been an asshole all night, and she was probably an asshole at the bar, and she was an asshole on the line outside.
And I go, turn on the lights for a sec. Who was that? Do you have a question for me? And it's just dead silence.
See, that's good.
And it's just dead silence. And it's just like, okay, I thought so. Let's get back to the show. And it's just...
Oh, don't let them off that easy.
No, they learn. I give the 3 strikes. I do the 3 strikes. If I let it go, ignore it. The third time, I'm coming at you. You have to. Because they don't stop. They won't stop unless you crush them. And when starting off, I would ask older comedians, what do you do? And that's what they would tell me. They'd go, when you do go after them, you crush them. Like, you have the microphone, you're in charge. They could barely hear this idiot. You could hear them, but they paid to see you, not this fool. So you better take care of it. Yeah. So anyways. But the getting back to the Sopranos, when I went to the date with the girl, like the girlfriend I haven't seen in a while, this is what she says to me. I remember it was a brand new Ferrari Testarossa. There was a guy parked out. We're downtown Toronto, and she literally, there was like a river of water between her legs when she saw the car. And I go, oh, you like the car? And she says, oh, it's gorgeous. And I go, well, I'm going to get one. She goes, well, you'll never get a car like that. And I go, well, maybe I should become a drug lord. And all serious, you know what she said to me? As soon as I said, and I said,
good idea, she said.
She goes, don't get caught. Is that, right there, I just thought love, whatever love was there, sweetie. And then 25 years later, I see her again. I start off again, and it's the same. She ended up getting a divorce from the guy, and she had no kids. And I tried to be as nice as possible, and she just went back to her way of just being a fucking bitch. And I just thought, I rarely, when I try and be nice, and I try to be nice several times, but when you keep shitting in my face, it's so hard. And finally I just say, fuck off.
It reminds me of George Carlin's remark that by definition, half the people you meet are below average intelligence. In the sense that people that like that, the typical fucking bitch is also not all that bright.
Right. But that's me, though. I'm not the brightest guy. Like, I've never. You could tell I'm not the brightest guy. But you know what? I'm incredibly loyal. I'll do anything for anybody, and if I treat you bad, I will do anything to justify never doing that again. You know.
And that's the way I am, and I realize that it to a large extent that's poison in a relationship. And one of the things that frequently happens to me in texting and corresponding with people, I invest so much that I'm not leaving the person hungry, and in fact, I'm susceptible to people doing this is. In writing about this, I'm trying to come up with a rationale for why texting sucks so much. I'm susceptible to the hook and hang. And right. What the hook and hang is when you have someone who just hung you. You're texting. I hate it as a primary form of communication. And then there's like a 2-day space. It just ends and they don't respond. And then they pop up and they say, I was thinking of you.
Right.
And the record for this was a woman that I had not heard from her in months. And she pops up and said, well, I was watching something on like Les Stroud, and I was thinking of you because I do camping and primitive school stuff. And, excuse me, and she was so far gone, she wasn't even my contacts. I didn't even know who she was, but from the context, I could kind of tell, and I just ignored it. And most recently, and this is the thing that precipitated my text meltdown this time around, which is she would do that too. She would pop up and say, and this is unique. Said, I was watching the Golden Girls, I was thinking of you.
Oh, that hurts.
No, she was watching. She was over in my place, and she was flipping through channels. She stopped and she was watching the Golden Girls. She likes Golden Girls. And so, there's a contextual thing to it, but the way that it just popped up out of nowhere, that's what I thought. I was like, gee, because she's younger than I thought, Jesus Christ, that fucking hurts.
It does.
And then, but the problem is when someone does the hook and hang thinking of you text, it's usually something that it's a very limited pool of things that they think about you. And I realize what they're doing is it's like a used car salesman that remembers your kids' names,
right,
to give the impression that he's somehow intimate or invested in you. So from whatever conversations you have with these people, they filed away one or two details. And that was the thing. I was like, that's what made you think of me?
Mm-hmm. But here's the beauty, though.
And I think that was the beginning of the end for me, like, dealing with this, along with, the other things because part of the hook and hang is they hook you, and before any real conversation starts, then it goes dead again,
right,
until they do it again. And then I find that, especially, but this is something about the difference between men and women, which is, I know this is going to sound terribly sexist, but in a relationship, men provide, women accept. So on the one hand, you don't want to be the guy who's like overly invested. He's putting too much time into, especially if it's a casual relationship, because then it just sort of seems creepy. But on the other hand, I can't find that nice balance of not responding enough, or not responding, or then just sort of letting it. I've tried to do it, but then I realized now you're just playing a game. You're not actually who you are. And so it's extremely frustrating. But I think that's what you were talking about, which is in a relationship of any kind, as a guy, I tend to invest more. I do the planning.
Yeah.
I do the acquisition of items.
But you're doing the fun part. Women love that too. Like, I don't do that part. Like, you know how you're saying yeah, and I could tell you're great at that sort of thing, but you see, you have the skill of writing.
Hey, yeah, and if there's any Canadian women out there that like a guy that hang around with, that really invest a lot of time and money, it's mykeru@gmail.com. Drop me a line. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, for real. I mean,
I got to tell you the Kelly Fahey story. I've been writing this.
I've seen your texts, and people go, like, people that don't know, you have wonderful texts. Like, you were coming back with me with these wonderful texts, and I would come back with one. Why I would only come back with one or two, like, okay, I'll talk to you soon or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm severely dyslexic. Okay.
Oh.
So I hate when people say, you spelt this wrong, and I'm like, I don't want them to know that it's.
I don't do spelling police.
But I fucking hate that, And it's just like, what I really want to say, it's going to take me a while to write it out to you. So even if I spell check it, it's still going to come out sounding Neanderthalish. So,
yeah.
So it's kind of like that. Like, you were very poetic the way you write stuff. And it's like, how do you come back to that? It's like,
maybe that's something, because, I notice, and this still happen a lot. And I think sometimes, women get used to having more verbal acuity than males do. But I tend to be very verbally nimble.
Women love notes.
Yeah. Well, but see, the problem is that when you're texting someone and, you're giving them your good stuff, and it's like being a comedian. You're giving them the A material, and you just hear crickets. You're bombing, and you're wondering why. Because they're just not paying attention. And this I loathe. I loathe this. I hate emojis. I hate smileys. And the reason is, you could write a fucking Shakespearean sonnet in iambic pentameter with metaphor and simile and everything. And then when you send it, there's like a delay, and they give you a smiley face.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
After all that.
Yeah, I know. I could imagine. I mean...
and I'm very entertaining. I mean,
I always send my wife the picture of the banana. I always, it's just the picture of the banana. She's like, oh, fuck, grow up. And I'm like, oh, come on, it's funny.
Wait, is it like a banana, or is it like...
It's a picture of a banana. I just found it hilarious. It's just a stupid picture of a little banana that you could... If you go through, they'll have, like, a smiley face, or a crying smiley face. We'll hit a couple more on there, and just go to the right. And there's flowers... There's horses, there's people, and then you could even find a little piece of shit on there. Yeah, and then there's a banana, and I just thought, perfect, a banana, a peeled banana.
Yeah.
But speaking of bananas,
well, I mean, it's cute, and you have a relationship with your wife. I mean, if you're dealing with someone that you know casually or don't know very well at all, and you end up just having whatever text conversation with them, I mean, I find myself, I'm really making an effort here, not because I'm an obsessive texter and I'm sending annoying text after text. I'm talking about actually crafting what I write, because I realize that this is a minefield. This is a tar pit where you wander in and die.
Right.
You're going to phrase something the wrong way, and I did.
Yeah,
at one point.
Yeah, and that's what I always worry about. That's why.
I was texting her, and she had a bunch of pictures online, and she was also in this awful film in 2009, and she was a little heavier then. But she still looked really good.
Right.
And so I texted something saying, well, I noticed a little weight fluctuation in your photos, but you still look good. No.
Oh.
As soon as I sent it, and she responded, and then later on, she in person said, yeah, you should. She said it in text, and then she said it in person. Said, yeah, you should put that in your online profile. I thought, oh God, there's no. I mean, I apologize so abjectly.
Never,
God,
ever.
I was just trying to say something just
I know, but
I just bombed.
I know,
I know,
and
I know, and that's why I try so hard on text, because occasionally, and why I hate it so much, because I know that no matter how hard I try and craft stuff and have a communication in this shitty little medium, eventually the law of averages is going to catch up to me, and I'm going to say something stupid.
yeah, I mean, I've done that where I've met a woman, and I, oh, when's the baby due? And they're not pregnant, and it's just like,
Oh my,
yeah,
really?
I've done it twice, and never again.
Just never
Never
say it
again. Never
say it
again. That's why I just shut my mouth. It's just, hi, nice to meet you. And then I'll ask the wife, is she pregnant? Like, what's the deal here? And I mean, you just think you're doing something nice, and your intentions were, you were saying something nice. You were a little heavier, but you still look great. No, 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 no. You are you're fucked. Anything you do with weight with a woman, you are fucked. You can never bring that up.
She was just really cute regardless.
I know, but it's just they take it the wrong way. They really do. I mean, I always ask, I go, do I look heavy?
Well, also too, like I said, there was no romantic relationship here, and there wasn't any.
No, I know, but
she was just like a fun person to hang out with, and so. Yeah,
with guys it's different.
Maybe that itself was overstepping bounds, and that's another thing, which is in trying to craft some sort of intimacy with someone. I'm not meaning that in a sexual way, but getting to know them, getting into their head. At the one hand, you have to sort of reach out and step a bit, but the degree to which you do that is always a problem. But this is the problem that we have now, which is. I mean, when you're dealing with someone who's face to face, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, just as an analogy, could you imagine texting comedians where you don't see them say anything or movement or
it's going to become that way.
They're just texting the joke.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor and said it hurts when I do that. He said, don't do that. Henny Youngman couldn't get away with that in text.
Who was the famous guy? Do you ever remember from the 70s?
It's an awful fucking medium.
I cannot.
But you have to, because then, and women like to use text because this way they can kind of quarantine you.
Are you kidding me? She knew. I went to before I talked.
If you make a phone call or something like that, now you're.
Oh God!
You're involved. This way, they can kind of space it out.
Are you kidding me? It's the worst. They have an app now that they know exactly how much you spend. If you go, she has this app that if I spend any money, she will text me going, "Why did you pay $16 for?" And I'll go, I bought a lotto ticket. Well, don't buy a lotto ticket. They're a waste of time.
Why the fuck would you have that app?
Oh, I told her. I go, me and Tony, my neighbor is this really funny guy. We always go to Comic-Cons together, and he's in the same boat. He's his wife's got the same app, and we try. This is how pathetic we've become as males. And I told him the other day, we have to squirrel away money, okay, just to buy comic books. Like, how fucking old are we? Are we men? Are like what is going on? I feel like Baxter, like just like
Matthew Baxter,
no balls, no,
the husband of Karen Stolznow, and one of the reasons that Karen Stolznow is so mad at Ben Bradford is because he dumped her and forced her to marry Baxter, and that's the burn that never goes away.
Oh Jesus! So what? I could tell you a quick little story with Baxter if you want.
Sure.
All right. Just this is what happened was this. Me and Mark's not here, but
we're not keeping this to an hour, so why keep it to 2 hours?
Yeah. Why not? It's just going so nicely. So and you don't mind if you got to go, let me know.
The Sander guy, we would do streams that lasted literally for 5 hours. So.
No, that's too long for me. I love that, but I love to listen to a show from beginning to end.
I'm saying if you want to go on.
Oh yeah, okay, that's great. So what happened was usually me and Mark, we do the show. Mark Arts, he's not here, but it would be me and Mark, and I interviewed Baxter and his the other guy. They have that paranormal team. So we do this interview, and I told him when we were hooking up, I didn't have Skype, but I had a calling card but he didn't know, like, it was never brought up, right? So he would just call on the phone, and he said, I'll get the other guy, and we'll... So we did this interview, and it was, I guess, an hour and a half long, and, everything was fine, everything was done. And then, no joke, like 3 months later, I get a text, and it was summertime, and when you're out with the neighbors, and you're in the backyard, and you're drinking, and blah, blah, and I get this text from Karen Stollznow saying, listen, we have a baby on the way, and I'm thinking, oh, great, congratulations, I remember.
The first thing I would say is, how'd you get my number?
Well, I had to, because he had to call, right?
Oh.
He had to call.
Still.
So he was.
Still.
Yeah, he was calling me from the
and
phone.
Then pretend, or say wrong number, please, anything.
Oh, but it was this text, and she goes, we got the baby, and blah blah blah, and Blade or Blades or whatever he was called. And
the kid, they named the kid Blade. I guess he's Blade Baxter.
He's Blade Blackster. Blade Blackster, everybody.
Blade backstab. Oh no.
So he's gonna be a tough kid, I guarantee you, but he has to. I mean, so what happens is she goes,
Well, I mean, he has to when his mother is going to come into the room and yell at him, "No wire hangers ever."
So he goes, I get this text, and she goes, listen, it costed some money. Do you mind paying for the phone bill? And I think it was like $60 or something. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not paying for an interview. And this was like months ago. Like, I thought it was a joke. So I just go, sorry, I don't, like she's saying in the text that, it costs money to feed a kid, and, times are rough, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, you just made 60-something G's off of people sending you money.
Yeah,
are you fucking kidding me? So I put down, yes, I know it's tough having a kid. I have 2 of my own that I have to feed too. So I'm sorry, I'm not paying for the interview. And she goes right back to me. She goes, Baxter will get a hold of you. So then I go, all right, fine. I get back. I'm drinking beers. I'm sitting there. I'm drinking beers with everybody. I get this text from Baxter saying, hey, listen, you didn't Skype that day. It's kind of your fault. Let's split the difference. Why didn't you pay $30 for the interview?
Oh, Jesus. How cheap is that? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Really?
But Mykeru, here's the thing. If you just called me and said you need the money, I'd give it to you. Don't give me this bullshit that, the phone bill was too much.
It's not fun unless they think they're manipulating.
It was just weird. So I go to Mark. Mark was camping, and I call up Mark. Mark was out camping. He does all the time. And I go, Mark, what the fuck? Did you see this? I sent it to him, and he goes, are they joking? Like, we did the interview like 3 months ago, and he wants $30? And I'm like, I ain't paying this fucking idiot $30. Like, are you kidding?
Let me just take a second to back it up in case anyone doesn't know what the hell we're talking about here, which is the shortest version of the story I can give you is that there's Karen Stolznow, who's a linguist and a lesser-known member of the skeptical community. She co-hosted on a podcast, Monster Talk, and did some other things. She wrote for, I think it was a Scientific American blog. And she had a relationship with a guy, Ben Radford, who's a much better known, more well-respected skeptic.
And I heard he's got a bigger penis, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, then Karen, I'm not sure about that. But he was a well-regarded skeptic, and he would... I personally saw him give a talk that he did for the National Capital Area Skeptics, and they had a relationship. And then the relationship ended. And after the relationship ended, she published this article. I think it was originally in the Scientific American blog called "I'm Sick of Talking About Sexual Harassment." Mm-hmm. And one of the things I remember about it was the opening was, she opens by saying that she's talking to a colleague, and she says, I was sexually harassed for 4 years. And he says something, oh my God, that's outrageous. And then immediately changes the subject. And I thought, yeah, that actually happened. Mm-hmm. And that sort of set the tone for it. And she went on a months-long. Now, first of all, it was, wink, wink, anonymous. She wasn't naming who it was, but it was really easy for anyone to figure out who she was talking about. And this sort of was another incident like Elevatorgate and the sexual assault charges against Shermer and the attempted sexual assault charges against Lawrence Krauss and whomever, that kind of split the community. But it split it in a very skewed way. There was a large number of people who wanted to get behind her and bought into, and remember, these aren't people that are in the Tupperware party. These are supposedly skeptics who believed her because you believe the victim, which is itself a fine example of begging the question, assuming the very thing that you're supposed to be proving. And this went on for months and months. She dragged him through the mud. And in fact, at one short point, she did a video that was connected to an Indiegogo page saying that she wanted to, because, like I said before, these sexual politics are never about the person. They're always a greater good thing. They're always dressed up that way. And so she wanted to, quote, give a voice to victims of harassment. And she collected from stupid people $60,000. $60,000.
Think about that.
Specifically slated to give a voice to victims of sexual harassment like her by taking Ben Radford to court and making him account for his sexual harassment crimes.
Yeah.
Now, among his sexual harassment crimes was he sent her these creepy emails during the period that she said he was stalking her. Things like, I'm thinking of you, I thought about you last night, blah, blah, blah. It turns out she took old emails from when they were actually in a relationship and changed the date on them. And suddenly you can see how that changes the whole dynamic.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it was like I was talking before about the hook and hang on text. This made me think of you. And so he's saying this made me think of you. Well, now, at the point at which she claims he's stalking her, it seems creepy. So she forged evidence. So this went on for a bit. And finally, Radford, and I along with A Voice for Men and a few other people, led a drive, and we raised $10,000 for Ben Radford so that he could at least fight
the lawyer fees. Oh, I could imagine.
And so, and he actually spent the money. Because he got her this close to court. And when she got this close to court, and this, remember, this is about months. Actually, it wasn't. It was a year. It turned into like a couple of years because this happened in August of 2013, I think. And she was this close to getting into court, and she signed a statement saying no one should think that the accusation that Ben Radford sexually harassed me are true, and no one should believe it.
Ugh.
Now, this was a statement that before all this started, and in fact, before she raised the Indiegogo money, Matthew Baxter, her now husband, and as I said, probably the reason why she's so pissed off at Ben Radford, because she had to marry Baxter. Baxter is sort of like her personal secretary and front man.
Mm-hmm.
He does everything for her. He approached Ben Radford with this exact same statement months prior. Radford agreed to it. Baxter, brokering the deal, said Karen agreed to it. And this is a Lucy having Charlie Brown kick the football moment. Because now Ben Radford, convinced that she was going to get on this statement, and now it was done with. And that's all he wanted. He wanted, his name cleared. He, unfortunately, came out and said, okay, well, Karen has admitted that, these charges were untrue. And then Karen said, look what my harasser did. I have no idea what he's talking about. See how he is? And then it dragged on for a few months more. But finally, when she actually got to go to court, she agreed to that exact same statement. And in the end of all this, since she didn't go to court, she didn't have to spend the $60,000 she raised to do it.
Fuck, man.
And then and after this, and this is where I kind of get involved in this, because since I was a lead in defending Ben Radford initially, because I mean it was obvious, especially as a member of the skeptical community. First of all, you have to have a presumption of innocence, but also too, you have to review the evidence. You can't say these facts are inconvenient, I'm not going to believe them because I have this higher value of believing the victim. So I did a couple of videos. One of the things I did was mirror her original, to preserve it, mirror her original accusation fundraising video, which is about 2 minutes long. After all this happened, Stolesnow realized that her attempt to harm Radford's reputation had succeeded, but now it was harming hers. And with $60,000 in the bank and all the harassment she could get away with under her belt, now she wanted it to all go away. And she started using the Digital Millennial Copyright Act to get rid of criticism of her, and she gave me a copyright
what
strike
is that?
for preserving her original video, which I do not consider Karen Stollznow's video to be, I consider it to be evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her claiming that this is somehow her creative work is like a check forger saying you can't prosecute me because this check is my creative property.
Right.
It's
you can't do that.
Evidence of harassment and fraud and lying.
Mm-hmm.
But she now is at the point where she just wants it all to go away. And that's where we are now.
And what's the copyright? How did she get that video taken off? Like, how did she...
She claimed it was hers, which it was. But see, I don't think that's an argument that holds ground.
Right.
Because it's not a creative work. I mean, if it was a song, it would be like "Screwing My Ex-Boyfriend," maybe. Maybe Nancy Sinatra would have sung it better. But I don't consider this to be in line with someone's essay or video on a certain subject. I consider it to be evidence.
Yeah, and
But even when I dressed it up with a running snipe explaining what a running commentary and everything, she got away with it because of YouTube's kind of idiotic system.
Right, but you weren't making anything up. I mean, you were putting down the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was, I think, why a lot of people loved it. I mean, people really enjoyed... I mean, if you didn't do that, I had no fucking idea what was going on, and I was a fan of Radford a long time ago, and I remember Matthew bringing up his name, saying, they in the podcast he brings up his name, and I didn't even clue in it was Ben, and then once I found out it was about Ben, and she raised 60 G's. Again, it's that Ghomeshi thing, thinking, well, I hope. I hope she'll be okay.
But see, Ben's problem was because of the way that opinion skewed in this believe the victim gotta defend women way, especially with assholes like P.Z. Myers and the free thought bloggers leading the way. There was one point at which Karen Stolesnow made accusations about Radford being just terrible during this weekend. I think it was in New York or something. So Radford publishes a picture of them in bed together. I mean, it's slightly salacious. I mean, the covers are up and you can see his nipples, and that's really something I didn't need to see.
Right.
But it proved the point that what she was saying about there being so much tension there at the time was horseshit. But as soon as he did that, what it suddenly became was, oh my God, Ben Radford just put up pictures of Karen Stolznow. What's wrong with this man? Has he no decency?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just ridiculous that they went there like that. So the problem was that no matter what Radford did to defend himself, it was considered beating on the victim.
Yeah.
Because they had already assumed the very thing that had yet to be proven. A
Oh yeah,
bunch
and
of freaking skeptics.
yeah, and this is
And,
what
and this is why I say the skeptical community, really, as far as I'm concerned, the online skeptical community. I'm not talking about people who actually still do it, Randy and Shermer and all those other people, but the online skeptical community that was composed of third-tier bloggers that repeated the stuff that the smart people said, it's dead.
Mhm.